Exposed. The incredible truth about my ex-wife's $34 million. Well, that surprised us all. Jake Mitchell sat in his darkened office, the glow of his computer screen illuminating the disbelief etched on his face. A letter from an attorney back in his small Midwestern hometown had landed in his mailbox last week, a strange twist of fate he hadn't anticipated. Emily's name danced mockingly in his mind, triggering memories he had buried beneath years of success in the city. The vibrant woman he had once built dreams with had suddenly exited this world, and with her departure came an inheritance he never expected, a staggering $34 million. Fame, fortune, but at what cost? The truth became heavier with each word he read. He was her sole beneficiary, but the catch: a renovation of the dilapidated community center, a place of warmth that had fueled their youthful hopes, complicated everything. He could feel the weight of nostalgia pressing down on him, every memory flooding back. Late-night study sessions, ramen meals shared over plans for a flourishing future. They had survived life as hardships together, once side by side, but paths had diverged, and they had grown apart. Now, a ghost from that past had reared its head, demanding that he was drawn back to a hometown he had sought to escape. Jake's pulse quickened as he grappled with his circumstances. Would taking the money mean betrayal? His architecture firm was thriving, opportunities flowing in daily, but the ultimate decision lay before him. Stay in the city and chase more prestigious projects, or return to the roots that shaped him, only to face whispers of resentment from those who once called him neighbor. He had left, hadn't he? Fled with dreams that didn't include Emily, making a name for himself in the fast-paced world of architecture. The guilt of failure hovered alongside a nagging question: would his ambition now cost him the chance to honor her last wish? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Memories turned bittersweet as frustrations swelled within him. Was Emily's death an invitation to confront the past, or merely a reminder of who he chose to leave behind? The faces of old friends morphed into critical gazes, judging his life decisions, silently resenting the man who had traded an ordinary life for corporate success. Would they see him as a prodigal son or a money-grabbing stranger? The thought made his stomach twist. They wouldn't understand the fight it took to get here. All those nights hunched over blueprints, the sacrifices he made to mistrust the home he abandoned echoed in his mind. He stepped into the town hall, resolved to face the storms lurking in the shadows of his choice. The stakes were more profound than he imagined, pressing down like the old damp walls of that community center he had left behind. With every accusatory glance, every hushed whisper, he felt his defenses begin to peel away. The legacy of a woman who had aimed to inspire and uplift now weighed on him like an anchor, urging him to return. As doubt crept in, Jake peered beyond the threshold of his past, terrified that honoring Emily's legacy could mean reshaping the very foundation of his identity. Heart racing, muscles twitching, he understood this wasn't just about old dreams. It was about confronting the man he'd become. Would he risk losing everything he built, all for the sake of rediscovering a ghost? The choice loomed, a sharp knife dividing the expected and the impossible, and as he stared at the wreck of the center, a startling story about Emily whispered on the periphery, threatening to unravel everything he thought he understood about love, sacrifice, and family loyalty. Jake stood bewildered in the town hall lobby, the murmurs and smirks of arriving townsfolk swirling around him like a dense fog. He was both an outsider and a part of this place, sunk deep into the mud of its history. Each passing face was a reflection of his past mistakes, and the weight of legacy bore down on him, making him question the man he had fought to become. How long could he keep running from the echoes of that former life? With his jaw clenched, Jake navigated through the familiar hallways. The scent of dust and aged wood permeated the air, igniting memories he had carefully tucked away. He found himself standing before the old community center, its faded facade attempting to hold itself together, as if yearning for the days of laughter that had echoed through its walls. Flashes of youthful dreams collided with the sharp realities of his current life. Did he have the strength to revive those dreams, to take on this unexpected responsibility? A dull desire for redemption simmered just below the surface. He'd become adept at building towering structures, but the crumbling center demanded a different kind of vision, one that spoke to community, to history, to the heart. Suddenly, ambition felt like an empty vessel devoid of meaning. What good was career success if it came at the cost of connection? Disciplining himself to ignore skepticism seemed futile. The ghosts of past aspirations lingered, wrapped in Emily's memory. Somewhere in the recesses of his mind, fury bubbled. Why hadn't Emily brought him into her plans while she was alive? Why now, after all that had been done, did this burden fill his chest like concrete? With each step, he contemplated the unmistakable need for closure, a means to navigate a landscape flooded with regret and unarticulated love. Love that hadn't disappeared but transformed, cracking under the weight of unfulfilled promise. He pushed through the doors of the community center and stepped inside. The interior, though worn, was alive with memories, the echo of children playing, laughter that invited connection. Kneeling down, he traced a finger along the wall where, all those years ago, he and Emily had etched their plans, dreams morphing from talk to whispered promises. Tears threatened to escape him, but he held them back, choosing instead to channel emotion into clarity. "Do I have the courage?" he asked the shadows of the past. A sudden thought struck him. What if tackling this renovation meant more than just restoring bricks and mortar? What if this journey could reshape him, digging deeper into the essence of who he once was, who he might still be? The decision coalesced within him, a determined whisper, not just to restore this building, but to reclaim the parts of himself that had been abandoned in the pursuit of ambition. With newfound resolve igniting his spirit, he imagined the plans unfurling, a way to blend his professional expertise with the spirit of community. Could combining those worlds somehow heal him as well? Just as he began sketching ideas for what the renovation might become, a voice cut through the heavy silence. "Jake Mitchell? Is that really you?" He spun around to see a familiar face, a long-lost friend who once shared the weight of childhood aspirations. Years had carved lines where laughter used to lay, but recognition surged through them. Would their conversations spark a deeper re-examination of his choices? The past had a way of unfurling upon contact, and it demanded to be recognized. The opportunity to re-engage with his roots beckoned, but what secrets might this encounter reveal? What aspects of his past would force him to confront choices that shaped both dreams and despair? In an instant, Jake's world narrowed to the figure before him. Mike Thompson, his childhood best friend, stood at the threshold of memory and time, a reminder of everything Jake had left behind. Once inseparable, their paths had diverged in ways neither could have anticipated. Mike had pursued a modest life here, while Jake chased ambition far beyond the small town's horizon. "Yeah, it's me," Jake managed, the weight of their shared history anchoring him momentarily. "Wow, it's been ages." "You look different," Mike replied, his voice tinged with a mix of surprise and curiosity. "I heard about Emily. I'm sorry, man." Jake nodded, the mention of Emily squeezing his heart. "Thanks." He could feel the familiar barrier rising, protective instincts pushing him to shield his emotions. "Are you back for good?" Mike asked, his gaze flickering toward the old community center, a question hanging in the air like an unspoken challenge. I'm here to do something," Jake replied, trying to find the words. "I'm thinking about renovating this place." Mike's eyebrows raised, skepticism etched into every line of his face. "Renovating? Seriously? You've been gone for so long. Why now?" A tightness wrapped around Jake's throat. He could feel his jaw tightening. "Because part of me never left," he thought, but didn't he say? "Because I need to confront who I am now, after everything." I guess he hesitated, searching for the right words that would unlock both his past and his intentions. "Because I want to change things for myself." Maybe for the town.
Change?
You? I remember when you couldn't stay in one place long enough to finish a project. Mike's laugh was an old comfort, but layered beneath it was a challenge. I know, Jake replied, sinking under the weight of his own history. But sometimes you have to return to your roots, right? You can't keep running. Fair enough, Mike conceded, crossing his arms. But you know it's more than just plaster and nails. People here, they don't forget. Actions matter more than intentions. You've got to be ready for that. Jake swallowed hard. He wasn't just returning to the physical remnants of his past, but to all the mistakes he'd made along the way. The tension lurking in the air felt palpable, ready to explode if he didn't articulate it. That's precisely why I'm here, he said finally. I need to face my past to move forward. Even so, Mike replied slowly, you can't just waltz back and expect everyone to embrace you. You've changed, they've changed. You're still harboring grudges, right? Mike's challenge stung. The truth a bitter pill. The anger, the regret they clung like shadows. Faced with his friend's blunt honesty, Jake grappled with the turmoil surfacing within him. You're not wrong, he admitted, feeling raw vulnerability wash over him. But I've learned something from all of this. I have skills, experience. Maybe those can mean something here. There was a flicker of understanding in Mike's eyes, as if he slipped into Jake's perspective, if only for a moment. If you're serious about the community, do it for them, not just for yourself. You can't just take your old dreams and slightly reshape them. That's not what this is about, and you know it. Jake saw the truth radiating from Mike's words, echoing Emily's waning voice in his mind. It propelled him forward. You're right. It's got to be more than that. It has to mean something. As Mike studied him, a decision began crystallizing in Jake's mind. He could meld his ambition with this new purpose. Perhaps this journey could indeed foster redemption, not just for him, but for those who had trusted him before he lost his way. Before Mike could respond, a shadow crossed the doorway, a figure entering from the outside with an intensity that made the air sizzle. Their presence commanded attention, as if fate had coiled itself around them, ready to unravel something monumental. Jake Mitchell, the stranger called out, voice booming across the room. We need to talk. You won't believe what I just found out about Emily's will. It's about the community and you. The words hung heavy in the air, igniting a new fire within Jake, threatening to consume his hesitation. What could this revelation mean for him and for the past he thought he was beginning to mend? The currents of his life were shifting again, and he felt the first tremors of impending upheaval. Jake's heart pounded as he turned to face the stranger, his previous intentions pushed aside like debris in a storm. The newcomer stood confidently, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room and landing on Jake with unsettling intensity. The echo of the stranger's voice, laden with authority, stirred something deep inside, an anticipation mixed with dread. Excuse me, Jake managed to say, attempting to maintain his composure despite a surge of adrenaline.
Who are you?
Name's Alex Mercer, the stranger replied, extending a hand that seemed to promise both clarity and confrontation. I'm a lawyer, and I was handling Emily's estate after. He paused, the weight of the words thickening the atmosphere around them. After her passing. The mention of Emily twisted inside Jake, a reminder of his loss. But it also sparked questions that he thought had been shuttered in the deep recesses of his mind. Why were you looking for me? He asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Because there's something you need to know about her will, Alex stated plainly, glancing back at Mike for a moment before turning his full attention back to Jake. I believe you're entitled to, let us say, a substantial inheritance tied to this town. Jake felt the cumbersome weight of ambition shift subtly in his chest, colliding violently with guilt. He hadn't returned seeking money or possessions. He had come to find purpose, to redeem the choices he once made. I'm not interested in handouts, he replied, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. Handouts? Alex echoed, raising an eyebrow. This isn't charity, Jake. This is a potential legacy, a way to effect real change. You and Emily had plans, didn't you?
Plans.
The word alone felt like a gale-force wind, lifting memories of starry-eyed dreams they had shared. They'd envisioned transformation, driven by youthful optimism. But now, those dreams were entangled in the pain of what had become of those visions and the person they had lost. "What do you mean?" Jake asked, curiosity and suspicion warring within him. There's a $34 million fund established specifically for the revitalization of this town, Alex clarified. "It's meant for projects that preserve local heritage, promote economic growth, basically the things you said you wanted to do." Jake's mind raced, flickering between excitement and trepidation. Could this be a chance to turn everything around? But beneath the thrill lay a deep distrust. Was accepting this inheritance going to mean filling the same role as the opportunists he had once despised, those who exploited rather than uplifted? "Before you decide, it's important to understand the stipulations. This isn't just free money," Alex continued. "You'll be managing it, implementing changes that would impact the entire town. Are you truly ready for that responsibility?" The question struck deep. Jake felt the weight of expectations. He had spent years running from commitment, and now, here he stood, facing the very qualities he had abandoned. The threads of guilt and ambition tangled intensely, forcing him to confront who he had become versus the man he aspired to be. "Why me?" Jake asked, voice slipping into a quieter whisper. "Because," Alex replied, his tone now almost gentle, "despite your past, despite the time away, you're the one who is choosing to come back. That says something." Jake's gaze faltered, his mind spinning with the enormity of what lay ahead. Could this be the turning point he needed? A chance to reclaim not just the past he'd lost but to forge a renewed future?
Just think about it, Jake.
Alex's tone shifted back to businesslike. "You'll have a chance to make a real difference, not just for yourself, but in her memory." The room hummed with tension, sealing every unuttered thought into an expectation-laden silence. Would he address the shadows of his past, or remain shackled by them? Before he could respond, Mike interrupted, skepticism returning. "You got to consider if this is truly what you want, or if it's just another scheme to run away from what you couldn't face." Jake's heart thudded in his chest, the crossroads of his life shifting unexpectedly once again. As the gravity of the moment settled heavily on him, Jake realized he stood not only at the edge of a decision but at the precipice of his own transformation, with the shadows of old habits lurking just beneath the surface. Would he rise above or be consumed by the past he thought he had reconciled? The air was electric with uncertainty, and all that he could control was the direction of his next step. Ready to confront the ghosts of his past, Jake took a deep breath, preparing to respond knowing that the answer would irrevocably shape his future. But the question lingered, hanging like a pendulum swinging over his head. Was he truly ready to rebuild a life worth living, or would past choices forever haunt his path? Jake felt the walls of the room pressing in on him, the weight of his old life and unresolved conflicts suffocating. The air was thick with indecision, and his mind raced with memories of Emily, of what they had dreamed about, and contrasting those dreams with the reality of their shattered future. The pivotal question loomed large. Was he truly ready to shoulder the responsibilities that came with the inheritance? Taking a step back, Jake weighed his options. His instinct screamed that accepting the inheritance could drown him in the same corruption he had fled. Yet, something inside flickered a desire to turn sacrifice into salvation. "I need time to think," he finally voiced, a mixture of determination and vulnerability. Alex nodded, as if expecting nothing less, but the challenging glimmer in his eyes hinted at an unyielding belief in Jake's potential. "I understand. Just remember, the clock is ticking." The comment stung. Jake's past decisions had always been knee-jerk reactions, driven by fear and avoidance. But now, he felt an urgent call to break that cycle. Instead of shying away from the challenge, perhaps this was his opportunity to confront his shortcomings head-on. Could he channel the memories of Emily not as a shadow, but as a powerful motivator? Leaving the meeting, Jake wandered aimlessly through the familiar streets of his childhood, noting how eerily unchanged they seemed. As he passed the old diner where they used to share late-night pancakes, He felt a pang of nostalgia, mixed with a resolve to excavate his buried aspirations. Jake found himself seated on a bench overlooking the river, a place where he and Emily used to watch the sunset, discussing their hopes. The soft sound of water lapping at the banks echoed like a soothing reminder. What sparked a dream once could ignite passion again. If he was to handle this fund, he needed to confront his fears of inadequacy and ineptitude. He pulled out his phone, heart racing not just with the thought of the inheritance, but with the intention to actively engage with his past. He'd begin the next phase of his life, by restoring not just the town, but also himself in the process. Jake decided to reach out to the local community leaders, artisans, and historians, to gather perspectives and ideas that aligned with his and Emily's original vision for revitalization. Moments later, as he jotted down contacts and sketchy outlines for potential projects, he considered potential plans that could revive not just buildings but spirits, culture, history, and people. The fund could breathe life back into the town, just as he needed to breathe life back into his own stale existence. His fingers danced over the screen, sending messages that eluded the fears that had kept him stagnant for so long. Yet, another thought crawled in, biting at the back of his mind. Was he only doing this out of guilt? Each message sent felt exhilarating, yet he was faced with the haunting question of whether he was truly fit for such responsibility. Time passed, and a strange determination replaced the dread that had previously loomed over him. Instead of succumbing to doubt, Jake felt the stirring of leadership rise within him. A desire to break generational cycles of failure and disappointment began aligning with purpose. He wasn't merely acting as a placeholder in his old life. He was stepping into a role that could redefine his trajectory. With every plan he formed, he envisioned a brighter future not just for himself, but for the town that had once seemed like a mirage of dreams unfulfilled. He wanted to rebuild, to create, to transform. This inner revelation revealed something previously hidden. But even as he felt the flames of confidence flickering inside him, the sense of uncertainty nagged shrill at the edges of his psyche. His thoughts drifted to Alex. Why had he approached Jake? What would he really demand from him once he took up the mantle? Preparing for the weight of potential success and the lurking pitfalls, Jake recognized this moment as a crucible. If he could confront his inner demons, while navigating the complexities of this new venture, perhaps he could finally emerge a stronger man. Just after he resolved to take the next step, a text notification drew his gaze. Alex's name flickered on the screen, a stark reminder that every decision had consequences. The message was brief. We need to discuss the legacy requirements in detail. I'll meet you in the same spot tomorrow. Be ready. Jake's heart raced again. The stakes were higher than he had anticipated, and the evolution from passive observer to active participant was no longer just about his past, it was about his future. He closed his eyes momentarily, bracing for the challenges ahead. Would he grasp the chance to redefine his existence? Or would the weight of expectation crush him? Tomorrow would reveal what he was truly made of. As dawn broke, Jake awoke with a jolt, the weight of his impending meeting pressing heavily on him. The familiar anxiety fluttered in his chest, but today it felt different. Perhaps it was the ever-growing resolve to fight against the inertia that had bound him for so long, or the beckoning responsibility that could lead to a renewed purpose. He grabbed his phone, scanning the messages he had sent the previous night, each one a step into the unknown. He pondered the conversations yet to come, each requiring a level of commitment he hadn't shown in years. Discussions about the legacy, the funds, and the expectations that would likely accompany them swirled in his mind. There was no turning back now. The hesitation that had once paralyzed him was transforming into a simmering determination. Dressing quickly, Jake glanced at himself in the mirror. Who was he becoming? The man staring back bore remnants of the boy who had once dreamt reckless dreams alongside Emily. With a deep breath, he left the confines of his childhood home, determined to navigate the path leading to the riverbank where Alex awaited him. The air was crisp as he approached, the stillness of the morning amplifying the turmoil within him. Alex was already there, his figure silhouetted against the water, arms crossed in a posture that conveyed both impatience and expectancy. Jake could feel the silent weight of the decision he had to make. Accepting the inheritance meant stepping into the fold of a life he had distanced himself from, yet it also meant seizing his chance to redefine his own narrative. Jake, Alex greeted as he turned to meet him, his tone neutral, yet carrying an underlying gravity. Let us go over your obligations. It's imperative we start laying the groundwork before the deadlines close in. Jake nodded, fighting the urge to shrink back. I've been thinking a lot about this, and Alex interrupted, his focus unwavering. Planning is crucial. You'll need to understand not just the funds but the responsibilities that come with them. Jake felt a tension build as he thought again of Emily's dreams of rebuilding, of creating a legacy that mattered. I want to transform the fund. Put it to work in a way that honors what we imagined before everything fell apart, he said, surprising himself with how firm his voice had grown. Alex's expression shifted, curiosity flickering in his eyes. That's ambitious. Do you think you're capable of managing such a transformative project? It's not just about money, Jake. There are legalities, stakeholder interests, and I get that. Jake cut in, his confidence surprising him. But sitting on the sidelines doesn't seem like it's going to bring any change. I want to be a part of this not only reactively, but proactively. I need to take ownership. A heavy silence hung between them as Alex measured his response. Finally, he spoke. If you're serious, you'll have to prove it. The fund's past is intertwined with a lot of questionable dealings. You'll be scrutinized, possibly even challenged by those who want to ensure the legacy remains unchanged. Jake swallowed hard, every word tugging at the lessons buried under layers of doubt. That's precisely why I need to dive in. I can't keep running away from my mistakes. I can learn, adapt, and grow if I do this. Intrigued, Alex leaned in. Then let us see if you can actually rise to this occasion. I'll set up meetings with the key players. You'll need to articulate your vision clearly and win them over. Failure is not an option here. A myriad of emotions clashed within Jake. Laying out his vision would require him not just to confront the past, but to risk vulnerability. The thought of facing potential rejection clashed with his yearning to forge a future where he could revive the dreams they once shared. It's time to turn these aspirations into tangible goals, he began, feeling the familiar pulse of determination coursing through him. Not just for me, but for everyone affected by the legacy that has been all but forgotten. Then prepare yourself. Embrace the challenge, Alex replied, his previously guarded demeanor now shifted to cautious encouragement. As he walked back from the meeting, Jake understood the gravity of the storm he was inviting into his life. Was he truly equipped to face the challenges ahead? The fear of failing weighed against the exhilarating thrill of possibility. Arriving home, he found his mind racing with thoughts about strategy, possible outcomes, and the fundamental need to rebuild both the town and his fractured identity. Yet, as twilight enveloped the sky, bringing with it the steady crawl of night, an unsettling realization hit him like a jolt. There were still details of the inheritance he had yet to uncover, details Alex had left unsaid. What hidden truths might lie in the legacy he was about to inherit, and how would they shape his approach? Tomorrow, he would have to confront not just the expectations, but the secrets that remained stubbornly entwined with his past. And just as he began to chart the course ahead, an instinct gnawed at the edges of his psyche. The real test was just beginning, and he had yet to face his most daunting challenge, distilling the heart of the legacy into something transformative without losing himself in the process. The following day, Jake awoke earlier than usual, and the air was still thick with the heaviness of his unresolved thoughts. The morning sun filtered through his window, painting the room in soft hues of gold, yet it brought him no comfort. It was time to peel back the layers of the inheritance that he had so recklessly agreed to inherit, a step that felt like standing at the edge of an abyss. As he sipped his coffee, Jake couldn't shake off that gnawing feeling in his gut. His mind raced with questions. What had Alex not told him? What did the legacy truly entail? The uncertainties taunted him, leading him to confront the possibility that some secrets were not meant to be uncovered. He needed clarity, and fast. The meetings with stakeholders would soon commence, and, without a thorough understanding of what he was dealing with, He feared he would crumble under the pressure. He needed to dig deeper, even if it meant wrestling with unwelcome truths. Driven by an urgency he hadn't experienced in years, Jake grabbed his laptop and began combing through emails and documents left behind by Emily's estate. As he clicked through each file, the thoughts of their shared vision flickered in his mind. Every hope they had for their future suddenly felt tainted by doubt. Could he honor her dreams, or was he just playing a part in an elaborate charade? Then he stumbled upon a document buried within the files labeled Disposition of Assets. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Within the pages, he found meticulous accounts of finances, every donation made, every dollar spent, and notably, a series of transactions that alluded to shady dealings. Confusion washed over him. Emily had always spoken about transparency, about creating a fund that would bolster the community, yet here it was all tainted with terms that screamed abandonment of integrity. Why hadn't Alex mentioned this? The implications spun around in his head. This wasn't just financial responsibility. It felt like a moral reckoning. Just then, his phone buzzed a message from Alex requesting an urgent meeting to discuss the implications of the inheritance. The air felt thicker in his lungs. He was unprepared for this conversation. Could it be that Alex was aware of these hidden transactions? The prospect of confrontation loomed ominously ahead. With his heart pounding, Jake typed a quick response, meeting Alex at the cafe they often visited. He wasn't just going to walk into this meeting as an unprepared heir. He was determined to confront everything that had been concealed from him, to unearth truths that might either bind him closer to the legacy or completely shatter it. As he made his way to the cafe, he rehearsed the conversation in his mind. He would demand transparency. He would not allow himself to be manipulated by anyone, not by Alex, nor by the ghosts of his past. He had to unravel this mess, not only for his own sake but for Emily's. She deserved honor, not just in words but also through actions grounded in the truth. But arriving at the cafe, a knot tightened in his stomach as he spotted Alex seated at a corner table, a storm brewing in his eyes. This was at the moment of truth was upon him, and as he approached, the gravity of the situation crashed down on him like a wave. What Alex disclosed regarding the legacy could determine not only the direction of their plans but also the fate of a community reliant on that very fund. The tension in the air was palpable, and Jake braced himself for revelations that could send ripples through everything he had planned. Jake took a seat and locked eyes with Alex. One fundamental question simmered in his mind. Was he genuinely ready to face the raw realities of this inheritance? The answer would come sooner than he thought, reshaping their paths forever. Jake took a deep breath, pushing aside the noise of anxious thoughts clamoring for attention. He could feel the weight of Alex's gaze, as penetrating as it was disconcerting. The cafe hummed with life around them, orders being shouted over the sound of clinking cups and laughter, yet all Jake could hear was the steady thump of his own heart. He had made a promise to himself to approach this meeting head-on, but the actual experience felt far more daunting than he had prepared for. "Jake," Alex started, his expression taut. "Thanks for meeting on such short notice." Jake nodded, his throat suddenly dry. "I got your message. We need to talk about Emily's funds." He didn't waste time with pleasantries. The memory of the suspicious transactions still loomed in his mind, serving as both a motivator and a hindrance. He could already sense that Alex was uneasy. Would the man confess to knowing more than he let on? Alex shifted in his seat, cracking his knuckles nervously. "I know this is a lot to unpack. I've been going through Emily's records myself. There are things we need to address." The hesitation in Alex's voice tugged at Jake's determination. "Then let's lay everything on the table," he urged, scanning for any flicker of deception. "What do you know about the discrepancies in the accounting?" Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair as if trying to comb through his own tangled thoughts. "It's complicated. Emily wanted to put the funds towards causes she believed in, but I think she may have been manipulated by people she trusted. There are people involved who had their own agendas." The revelation struck Jake like a hammer, shattering the remnants of his perception. It wasn't simply negligence. It was betrayal, woven into the very fabric of Emily's legacy. "Did you know about these dealings?" he asked, voice steady, but edged with frustration. "I didn't know everything," Alex admitted. "I wasn't privy to all her meetings, her conversations. But I sensed a change in her. At first, she was adamant about transparency, but he faltered, guilt clouding his expression. I think she wanted to protect the legacy. She didn't want to admit that things weren't as they seemed. I thought it was a phase." "Protect it from what?" Jake pressed, the urgency rising within him. "How can we move forward if the foundation we're building on is, quite frankly, rotten?" The gravity of his own words rested heavily on his shoulders. The quest for respectability had morphed into a tangle of deceit. He had hoped, perhaps through sheer desperation, that the legacy would lift him closer to the person he wanted to be, not self-destructively obscure him in shadows. "I think Emily was afraid," Alex said softly. "Afraid that revealing the truth would ruin everything she worked for. She believed too deeply in the cause." With the expenses logged, it seemed manageable, but Jake interrupted him sharply, the fear creeping into his voice. "If her intent was to honor the community, then how can we let this legacy live under her name if it's birthed from dishonesty?" Silence encased them, a reminder that their futures hinged on making the right decisions now. The weight of responsibility loomed larger than ever. Jake's mind began racing with possibilities, careful strategies that could methodically dismantle the lies woven around him. "Then we confront it," Jake decided aloud, a fire igniting within him he didn't know was there. "We start discussions immediately with the stakeholders. We need to clarify what stands beneath the surface. If Emily's name is to mean anything, it must be rooted in truth." Alex looked at him, a flicker of admiration mixing with apprehension. "Are you sure you're ready for what that might uncover? There might be backlash not just from stakeholders, but from those who have vested interests in keeping this shady." "I want to bury my head in the sand," Jake declared, the tremor in his voice giving way to strength. "Emily may be gone, but I owe her this. If we unearth the truth, it may lead to healing." As he spoke, the fear within him began to coalesce into something resembling determination. He realized that confronting the complex realities of the inheritance could shift the trajectory of not only his life, but the legacy itself. He glanced at Alex, a strategic partnership forming before him in adversity. Their uncharted collaboration held the promise of unveiling something profound, but Jake also understood that this was merely the beginning. "Tomorrow, we meet the stakeholders," Jake asserted with unyielding clarity. "And we bring the truth to light, no matter the cost." With the decision solidifying their paths, Jake's mind raced forward. What hidden truths awaited? Would the legacy withstand the scrutiny? Or would it crumble? As he locked eyes with Alex, Jake knew they were about to embark on a confrontation that could unravel it all, one that might reveal more than either of them anticipated. Jake's mind churned as he left the cafe, each step down the sun-drenched street matching the pulse of uncertainty in his chest. The earlier resolve now melded with doubt, twisting into a tight knot that seemed to constrict his ability to think clearly. What if he was ill-prepared for the storm that lay ahead? As he walked, the air felt thick, laden with the magnitude of the truth he was about to confront. Harnessing adrenaline, he pulled out his phone, contemplating what to say in the meeting ahead. Should he focus on the financial irregularities, or was it more important to address Emily's intentions? The answer seemed tangled in secrecy, each new consideration complicating the next. The fading sunlight painted long shadows against the pavement, mirroring Jake's wavering confidence. Arriving home, he spread Emily's financial documents across his dining table. It was time to dissect the legacy she'd left, every transaction, every allocation of funds. As he scrutinized the notations in red ink, a chill ran through him. There were names, aliases, and acronyms he didn't recognize, slipping away from his understanding like grains of sand. Each figure invoked a deeper level of betrayal, each a reminder that Emily had trusted the wrong people, yet beneath the anger burned a flicker of understanding. Emily had been trapped, her desire to uplift perhaps manipulated into a perilous maze instead of a cornerstone of community. In that moment, Jake recognized the weight of leadership he had wanted to inherit wasn't merely about finances. It was about integrity and direction. The legacy she fought for was mired in shadows, and he felt an unyielding need to illuminate. He spent the rest of the evening sorting through the documents, his neurons firing with newfound purpose. Uniting the scattered pieces of Emily's financial dealings led to moments of clarity. He noted patterns where funds were diverted significantly more than similar initiatives. He could almost hear the echoes of her determination, fading yet palpable, urging him to push through the noise. At one point, he paused, staring at a particular transaction that sparked a familiar name. David Mitchell, he muttered, recalling how fervently Emily had spoken of him during their briefings. Had she once called him a friend? As he continued digging, unease settled in his gut, hinting at something darker lurking just out of sight. Determined to lace the day as hard work into a clear narrative, he started drafting talking points for the meeting. He would need to maintain a balance between factual presentation and emotional resonance. This was about more than just money. It was about a vision stripped of its purity. The clock ticked on, the hours slipping past with relentless insistence, but Jake fought fatigue. It became a necessity to hone his arguments, to prepare for any defensiveness from stakeholders. They were not likely to easily surrender their positions if he pointed to their connections with Emily's questionable choices. Finally, he stepped back, surveying his chaotic table adorned with sticky notes and printouts. There lay clarity amidst the chaos, a narrative blooming from the ashes of doubt. "This is it," he whispered, a gentle conviction wrapping itself around his apprehension. Jake sat down one last time, a surge of confidence igniting his resolve. He would lean into the discomfort, harness the revelations with calculated confidence, and face whatever was to come. Tomorrow, they would meet with stakeholders, a point of no return. What truths would unravel in the tense atmosphere? What alliances would shift? Would confronting the web of deceit reverberate throughout the community, or would it leave him standing alone? The legacy now his burden, he leaned back, contemplating the path forward. With every step, he felt the urgency not merely to reclaim Emily's memory, but to forge his own legacy in the process. The stakes had never been higher, and the uncharted territory lay ahead. With a determined breath, Jake resolved to uncover what lay beneath, knowing that what awaited him might transform everything. However, was he prepared for the consequences of illumination? Would the truth liberate or condemn not only his future, but Emily's essence as well? In the dim light of the conference room, Jake stood at the head of the long wooden table, the air thick with anticipation. The stakeholders, a mix of familiar faces and strangers, were assembled before him, each representing entrenched interests that had tangled around Emily's legacy. Today marked a defining moment, a culmination of turbulent revelations that could either restore honor to her name or dismantle the fragile foundation of trust precariously built over the past months. He drew in a steadying breath, aware that the stakes were monumental. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady despite the tempest within. "Today, we're not just discussing numbers. We're confronting the reality of this legacy together." Jake's steadfast gaze swept across the room, searching for signs of receptiveness. "My late wife, Emily Mitchell, envisioned a future grounded in authenticity, a future that honors community integrity. But it's become evident that her intentions may have been compromised by the shadows of bad decisions." He paused, letting the words settle like stones dropped into still water. The murmurs rippled, skepticism evident on several faces. He pressed forward, determined. "I've unearthed discrepancies in financial records suggesting there were misappropriations linked to those she trusted. I can't stand by and allow this legacy to become a shroud of dishonesty." A gasp resonated from the back of the room, and Jake felt every pair of eyes on him like a weight to bear. But underneath the pressure lay an invigorating sense of clarity. The moment he had sought for years was unfolding. He felt the stirrings of his own transformation flash between fear and courage. "We owe it to Emily and ourselves to rectify these wrongs. Let us pivot toward transparency and accountability." With each passing moment, Jake's voice gained momentum. He outlined a plan that involved bringing in external auditors, engaging community leaders, and establishing an independent oversight committee to ensure meaningful governance moving forward. As he spoke, walls began to crumble that had stood for too long. The energy shifted, painting the room with a new aura. Possibility mingled with the heavy burden of realization. Some stakeholders folded their arms, others leaned forward, caught in his vision. Jake sensed that they were beginning to absorb the larger picture. A revival would require humility and collective effort. This isn't just about salvaging funds. This is about rebuilding the emotional capital that Emily invested in this community. It's about honoring her memory through actions steeped in integrity. An elderly man, once staunch in his reluctance, raised a hand. What if the people don't forgive, Jake? What if they see this as too late? Jake met his gaze evenly. Then it becomes imperative that we demonstrate we're committed to doing better. Forgiveness is earned through action, not merely offered. If we shine a light into these shadows, we will build trust step by step. A wave coursed through the room. Murmurs of agreement began to emulate that shared understanding. It was a realization larger than any individual. Turning walls into windows, he embraced their collective history, showing that what had once been poison could also transform into medicine for the soul of the town. The discourse became spirited, ideas milling, individuals building on each other's contributions. They discussed potential initiatives, community gatherings aimed at transparency, educational workshops centered around collective history. The obvious goal became clear: to put the community first, to rekindle their spirits, and reclaim a legacy that meant more than just financial transactions. As the meeting drew to a close, one by one, stakeholders offered their support. A local teacher proposed a fundraising initiative to sponsor youth programs. A local business owner pledged to donate resources for outreach efforts, eager to be part of something greater. Suddenly, Jake felt himself enveloped in a newfound sense of belonging that had eluded him for too long. Emboldened, the formerly anxious architect turned into the passionate leader Emily had always believed he could be. Later that evening, Jake strolled through the town, feeling the pulse of lives intertwined with his own. Here, memories lingered. Children he once played with now running toward tomorrows shaped by hope rather than despair. He felt the weight of the day dissolve into the night, replaced by something lighter: purpose. Jake turned toward the riverbank where he and Emily had shared dreams of a bright future. Those dreams had faded, but now they were twisting back into reality, redefined yet familiar. He had embraced the risks inherent in leadership, catalyzing a broader movement fueled by collective regeneration. That night, as he fell into a peaceful sleep, he understood that he had transitioned. No longer an architect merely designing structures, he had become an architect of lives, constructing hope. Tomorrow awaited, with fresh responsibilities. Ready to face a community eager for rejuvenation, Jake opened himself to a future filled with promise, holding tightly to that light of redemption, forged through authenticity and obligation to a legacy that was undeniably alive within him. Now was the moment for transformation to take its fullest form. With the lessons from his past woven into the foundation of a newfound future, Jake stood ready to not only honor Emily's memory, but to reclaim and redefine himself in the process. If you want to witness how this remarkable journey unfolds, you need to subscribe now. This is not just a story, this is a transformative experience. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm that brings these emotional narratives to life. Comment below your reactions and theories about Jake's adventure, because your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because together we can inspire real change. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support for authentic stories of personal overcoming.